All right, I'm excited because today I'm here with Courtney and we are talking about scams. So we're talking about a scam that she encountered when she was in Morocco. So we want to share this with you so that if you're there, you know what to expect and you know what to avoid as well, if possible. Although you were just kind of minding your business. See, this is what I think. Sometimes things start out so normal, but things can just kind of take a weird sort of path and detour. So tell me about it. You're arriving in the city, you're going to your hostel.
So I took the train from Tangier all the way to Marrakesh, and then I was supposed to get in at 8 p.m. Didn't get in until 1:30 in the morning.
What happened on that train, by the way?
There was a lot of rain,
Okay.
and Morocco has its own time. So if it says like something's leaving at 9, it could leave at 10, and it was a Sunday, so I guess there's more relaxed.
Sounds like India. Like
Yeah.
there's just no rushing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're supposed to get in at 8, you get in at 1.
Yeah, and then at one point I had got Wi-Fi, so I messaged my friend to call my hostel to see if it was too late to arrive or if he could book me a hotel room. And so he called the hostel and they're like, no, we're open 24/7, someone will be here, it happens. And I was like, okay.
That's what you want to hear?
So I got in a taxi, he overcharged me, which was fine. It's 1:30 in the morning, I don't care anymore.
Been there too, yeah.
And then he just drops me off in a poorly lit area, and he was like, I can't drive you to your hostel, you have to walk down that way. I'm like, what?
Right.
And so
So
he,
was it like wasn't the road too narrow?
yeah,
for
it
a
just
car?
comes into like a little alley,
Okay.
just like little alley size. So he dropped me as far as he could, and then he flagged down this,
So by the way, how are you feeling? At 1 a.m., you're dropped off in a city you've never been to in Morocco, and he's like, walk down that little dark street. You're like, oh, great.
well, because in my head, I met a girl who has lived in Morocco for like years, and she's like forewarning me about certain things, like don't walk by yourself as a female at night, don't go down poorly lit alleys, and everything she told me
So
not to do.
day one, you're about to do it. You're like, oh, she told me don't do, all of these things are happening right now at 1 in the morning.
Yeah, and then she's like, if someone offers to help you, they're gonna want money, and so I'm like, awesome. So the taxi driver flagged down this teenage boy, probably looked around 15, to walk me. And so he's walking ahead of me, and I'm like, not supposed to do any of this. My phone's about to die. Awesome.
That is the worst case scenario. I hate those vulnerable moments. First of all, you don't know where you're going. You're in a foreign city, and your phone is about to die. Like, no, there's no phone charger
Yeah.
on that train?
No.
Okay.
And then so we're about to turn the corner, and then as we turn the corner, I see someone coming out of my hostel, and it looks like they closed the door. So then we get to the hostel, and he's like, oh, here you are. And I was like, okay, cool, like, thank you.
Right, so you're like, success. Like,
Yeah.
you've made it to your hostel. It's Morocco. You've just won.
Yeah. So now I'm in like this little alley with two guys. And so the guy coming out of the door was just like, oh, like you have to pay my friend. I don't want any trouble with him.
The friend who walked you there.
Yeah. If you don't pay him, you can't come into the hostel. So I'm being forced to pay this guy. And I know like I was...
And were you thinking that you were going to slide him some cash anyway? Or you were thinking like, just thanks for the walk?
For me, I was like, this thanks for the walk. Because technically, I never asked him for help.
Right. You're like, my driver arranged
Yeah.
this deal. I had nothing to do with it. Let him pay you.
Yeah, especially because I already paid the driver so much.
Right, that's true.
And so the equivalent is pretty much like €1 for their currency. And so
Okay.
you should only give them like kind of like €1. And so like in my
Even
head,
that, I'm thinking is a lot.
That is a lot
like,
for
to
them.
pay $1 or €1, so that's more than $1. That's
for like a
$1.
2-minute walk.
30, right. Mm.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's cool.
But whatever.
And so he was like, this insults me. So I had gave him like 50, I think it's dirham, like their currency, but so I gave him €5. And then he was like, this insults me, blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
So is this the
guy who watched me is
the
now
guy who
getting
walked
aggressive.
you is insulted? The
Yeah.
15-year-old kid.
Yeah, is insulted by €5.
I was making like $0 at 15. I
Yeah.
would have been glad for someone to hand me like 50 cents.
Yeah,
but-
and he was like, this insults me. And I was like, I have no money. I only have money for my hostel stay. I was like, come back tomorrow. I'll give you more money.
Now, by the way, were you just saying that to get rid of him? Or
Yeah,
did
I
you
had
make
money.
your own?
I had
Okay,
money.
Yeah.
But it's still not like the point like that.
Right.
He's demanding all this money, and I know that it's a
Yeah,
lot for him.
Right, for sure.
Especially that he watched me 2 minutes. Like, so and then the person who works at the hostel was like, no, you have to. I don't want trouble. Like, more like bad things could have happened to you. Like, he could have robbed you. You could have done this. And so he's trying to say like I should give him more money that he didn't attack me.
He's like, since we didn't rob you or physically abuse you, clearly you should pay more than €5. So, like, what is the anti-rob rape fee?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you have to pay $20 to not be
Yeah.
raped. Like, what? How
Yeah.
does this makes no sense?
So eventually I gave him like 30 more. So really I gave him €8 and I was like, that's all I have, like not giving you any more, let me into my hostel. Like I'm getting aggressive now. I'm just like, are you the manager? Let me talk to the manager, let me speak to the owner. It was like, open it. And so the guy's like, ugh, and like storms off with his €8. Like he's upset.
Also, because by the way, how much was the hostel?
Less than that.
See, this is how you know, like, that she's really already paid, like, a lot of money, because I'm thinking, €8, that's more than a lot of hostels. So, right,
Yeah.
it is, even there, that's a lot of money. So that could pay for one night's accommodation somewhere.
Yeah,
That's a
and it's
sizable
starting to
amount.
get to the point of, it was more than my taxi, and my taxi was a half-hour drive.
Right.
Yeah.
So you paid the same, you paid more for a 2-minute walk than a half an hour
Yeah.
taxi ride. So this is crazy.
And so like now it's kind of like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm exhausted. I'm annoyed. The boy walks off, and then so it's just the guy that works at the hostel, and then he starts to ring the doorbell and knock on the door. Nothing happens, and he keeps staring. I eventually turn on my service, so now I'm paying international roaming fees. And I tried to call the hostel, no answer. And so I'm banging on the door, ringing the doorbell. The guy's face is just like, oh shit.
Because does this guy actually work at the
No,
hostel?
he doesn't. So what had happened, I'm assuming, because the boy was on his phone, that he texted his friend and be like, hey, I have someone. And so he made it look like that he was
Okay.
closing the door, but really he was never inside.
Oh, interesting.
So just how I looked, it looked like he closed the door, but really he was
So
standing
he
out there.
looked like so wow, this is really a coordinated attack.
Yeah.
It looked like he was from the hostel, but these are just two neighborhood kids.
Yeah.
Ganging up and conspiring.
Yeah.
To take some dough.
Yeah. And then so the guy that I realized doesn't work there leaves. He's like, I'll be right back. I have to go get someone. And I was like, okay, so was not supposed to walk down a dark alley. Was not supposed to do this. Now I'm standing by myself in a dark alley. My phone's gonna die. I'm at 2%. And I can't get a hold of anyone. And now I'm by myself. And so this security guard with a dog walks by and he's like, oh, like, how, do you need some help? Like, I saw the boys.
At this point, you must have been so scared because I'm scared listening. A security guard walks by. Also, when you're in these foreign countries, it's tough to know who's who.
Yeah.
Like, is this a security guard or is this round 2?
Yeah.
You know,
and then
what's
he,
happening?
He was like, I was like, yeah, those boys ripped me off. I know they ripped me off. He's like, oh, like, I can help you. How much do you want to give me to make me help you? And I was like, get away from me. Like, leave me alone. Like, I'm done.
I paid all my scams for the evening. Scam time is over.
Yeah. So luckily he actually left. And then so the boy that worked at the hostel comes back with this man. And the man was like, oh, like, I'm so sorry. Like, come to my hostel. Like, you have to come inside. Like, we'll give you food. We'll give you drinks. We'll try to get a hold of your hostel. Like, just please come with me. And I'm like, no.
Right.
Like, just no. And then he's like, please, 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 please. And I, like, at this point, like, I just have no patience to give. And I was like, eventually he convinces me to come. I was like, I'm not giving you any money. I'm not giving you any money. Like, I've already been scammed out of money. No more money. And I think it clicks what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then he says something to the two boys. And then they're just kind of like, sorry. And, like, walk off.
They didn't return that money, though.
No.
So they weren't so sorry.
Yeah.
They're like, sorry.
Yeah.
Tuck it into their pocket a little deeper.
Yeah. So I went into this second hostel. And they're trying to offer me food, drinks, like a bed to sleep on. And I'm like, no, just please contact my hostel. I want to go to my hostel.
Yeah.
And so I found like a plug and I got onto their Wi-Fi. And now I'm trying to look up their hostel, be like, where am I? Like, what is this
Yeah.
place?
Yeah.
Looking at reviews. And then eventually, like an hour later, they still can't get a hold. And so they're like,
But at
"Please."
least at this point, you are at a legitimate
Yeah.
hostel that's functioning, running.
And the guy's actually being helpful and trying to help, not trying to scam me.
Okay.
And so I was just like, no. And then so eventually there's like, please just go sleep in this bed. Like, it's fine. We'll deal with it in the morning. And I'm like, okay. But like, I go to the bed fully dressed. Like, I only took my shoes off. Like, I didn't take anything off, didn't open anything, was just like...
That's what I do when places look dirty. I stay fully dressed.
Yeah.
I just lay on top of the sheets. But you were just doing this out of concern.
Yeah. And then so eventually, like, the next morning, like, at 9, I go downstairs. And this is when everything kind of hits me, what happened, and, like, how lucky I kind of am that nothing went south. Like, it was just money.
Yeah.
But, like, they used a scare tactic, and eventually it worked.
Right.
But I went downstairs, and I'm glad the receptionist knew what was happening, because if I had to tell what happened, I would have cried.
Yeah.
So eventually they like take me to my hostel, and the guy working at the hostel is like, I'm so sorry, I was in prayer when I came to the door, like you were gone, which wasn't true, because we had called multiple times. I was standing by myself for 20 minutes at one point.
I was in prayer. Like, I mean, I respect prayer, but like, how long was that prayer taking?
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't come down and help you out. Like, a foreign woman he knows is arriving at night, but like, I think God would want someone to help that woman who's on the side of the road. Like,
yeah, so it was an interesting thing, and then I saw the boys the next day, and I was like, oh, there's the boys, and they wouldn't make eye contact with me. And I pointed them out to the people from my hostel. I was like, yeah, those two, right there. Because obviously public shaming is like a huge no-no and like a big deal.
Right.
But yeah, and then because when I got on the train, I actually got off on the wrong stop, and this man who could barely speak any English was helping me. And in my head, I'm like, oh, he's gonna scam me. He's gonna scam me. And then I was like, this stop? And he's like, no. So he sat with me. And then when he got off at his stop, he got this young lady to come sit with me until my stop and didn't want anything of it. Right. And I was like, oh, like, okay, so.
You're like, there are kind people here in Morocco, which of course there are.
Yeah, and then so the train thing, I was like, oh, he's scamming me. But really, he was just a nice person helping me out, make sure I wasn't getting lost. And then after the train, all this happens, and I was like, okay.
That's the thing. It's like sometimes it's really hard to tell. I mean, you knew that these guys were setting you up and were taking advantage of you, but I think this, of course, happens with travel. There are times when you're vulnerable, and you maybe know that something has turned left, something is happening that shouldn't exactly be happening, but still, what do?
Yeah.
When you're alone on the side of the road in Morocco, in Marrakesh, I mean, you don't really have too many options.
Yeah, and everyone's pretty much sleeping at this point, too, so it's not like I can just scream, like, there's no one in the streets.
Right. But I'm glad that you made it.
Yeah.
You know, like, when your friend was telling you about things that happened, and obviously you did a few things that were on the list that you're not supposed to do, but obviously you didn't have a choice. Your train got in later than anticipated and things like that. I mean, I guess my question is, are violent crimes, do you know, like, kind of common there, or is it just sort of like these scammy sort of things happen?
It's more scamming things, but also the government has really put an effort into tourism, and so Moroccans know that if they like harm a tourist, they can get like serious jail time, because the government wants Morocco to be a safe country because they realize how much money they can make off of tourism.
Yeah.
So like it has improved a lot over the years, but it's also one of those things, once you know, like I sense I knew those boys weren't gonna physically do anything to me, but they were playing on my fear.
Right.
And also I was in a situation where like they're the only people I see on the street that like.
Right. And I think that is a thing that it's like a good thing in a way, but it doesn't help necessarily. Which is that I think violent crimes against tourists are not so common in a lot of places. We're here in Thailand right now in Chiang Mai. You hardly ever hear about any violent crimes. You definitely hear about scams and things like that. But it's like sometimes people get you in this situation, especially as a woman. I think it's easy to feel a little bit vulnerable when like these guys are around you. Like, you got to give them that money so that they leave you alone or go away.
And like my gut was to let my friend book a hotel to me, because there's a hotel right beside the train station. But it's the fact that he called and they said, yes, we will be here.
Right.
And that's why I still went. Whereas like in the morning, I could have like just slept at the hotel, paid more money, whatever.
Right.
And then gone during the daylight. But it's just one of those things, he called ahead and be like, yes, well, we know, we're expecting her, like, we'll be here.
Nothing you could have done to avoid that situation. For other people, it's something to remember though. If you know you're arriving at 1 a.m, book the hotel that is closest to the station. Or sometimes, I don't know what that train station is like, but when I was traveling through India, and if I would arrive somewhere like 1, 2 in the morning, and if I didn't want to leave, there were times when I literally hung out at the train station for hours waiting for the sun to come up. Because I was like, you know what? Train stations, bus stations are always filled with people, and they're always really safe.
Yeah.
That is my go-to when I arrive at like 3 a.m. I just like sit there. Although, okay, honestly, I did that at one train station in India. I love India. It's an amazing country, but it was a little bit shocking. There were like people sleeping everywhere, all over the floor. And there were some rats also that were making their way through the train station. But it was kind of cool to see how like everyone was really in harmony. Like the rats were doing their thing, the people were just laying, and I was just sitting there waiting for sunrise.
Yeah.
Everyone found its place. Mm-hmm. So if you can plan to keep yourself safe, but sometimes things happen, and I'm glad you had at least a few extra euros. As long as no one's harmed at the end of the day, I think it's a successful situation.
Because it is money, but
it's money, but also it's not like a huge sum of money, right?
For me,
it's like €8. Was that US? $10?
Yeah.
You know, something like that. So I'm glad you made it safely, though. Got to that hostel.
Yeah. And I still had a great time in Morocco. Met amazing people. That was just an interesting way to start a trip.
An interesting way to start a trip, but not at all a reason to not go. Morocco is still definitely on my list. I'm hoping to make it there sometime next year.
And that's what I think people need to realize. Like, if you do get scammed, you can't generalize and be like, this is the whole country, this country's awful. It's one person. Like, you can get scammed back home.
Absolutely.
Like, so don't let that ruin your trip. Like, it's hard not to. Like, deal with it. Like, go through, like, their feelings that you have. But, like, don't let it ruin the whole experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like to put things in context, too, because, okay, like, you were in Morocco for how long? You know, like, if you look at the time, the days, whatever, what amount of that time was spent being scammed?
Yeah.
It's a small percentage, right? So that scam, like, don't allow the small percentage of time to override days, hours, weeks of potentially fun trip.
Yeah.
So just learn from these things. We're telling you so that you hopefully can avoid these situations. But so that if it does happen to you too, you know, you're not alone. It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. It happens, but you can move on from it. So I'm happy to have had this chat with you today.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for being here. And I will check in with you guys later. Hope you enjoyed it.